And first thing on the agenda would be the minutes of the last meeting we had. Gentlemen, any questions on that? Any additions, corrections?
Motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
Okay, motion's made and second that we approve the minutes of the last meeting. Okay, Tony?
Here are your minutes. Okay, the first item I have is payroll claims paid on 7/23/21. The amount is $315,865.97. $315,865.97.
Okay. Any questions, gentlemen, on that?
No, I'm just kind of looking through here real quick.
This is the third.
Yep.
Okay, here's your minutes, gotta be signed, you got that, and you got your payroll. Okay, I need a motion to approve the payroll claims.
So moved.
Oh, payroll or regular claim?
Payroll.
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 Okay.
You second it?
Yeah, second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to approve the claims, $315,865.97.
Okay, now we will do the accounts payable claims, and as you know, normally you get these a lot sooner.
Right.
We've had illness in the office and so forth and so on, and State Board is here auditing still, of course, and they're keeping us pretty busy as well. Some of the larger items in there, once again, it's the time of year for Highway Department to have a lot of work being done. There is, I think it's $55,000 that we paid SBOA for auditing the schools, but then we will get reimbursed later for that.
Okay,
So that will be coming back to us.
Will we also have to pay them for auditing our books? Okay.
Yeah, we will.
yeah,
at
we
some
will.
point.
Yeah,
And I think there were some IT things in there. Some of those were going back to June and July that are being paid now.
what's the total on the claims
The
again?
total on the accounts payable is $722,569.40, $722,569.40.
Got a motion to approve?
Yeah, any other you have any questions on those, Steve?
No.
Anything? Okay,
I'll second it.
okay, motion's been made and seconded that we approve claims of $722,569.40.
Here's that. If we need a loan, we can just go talk to Ed. And we'll know in a minute if we can, because you got your report. Okay, we ready? Are you ready for Allied weekly claims?
Okay, go ahead.
The Allied weekly claims for insurance is $32,039.20, $32,039.20. And I'm looking at, it looks like that's all medical, actually.
I'd make a motion to approve that.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. We'll go ahead and approve $32,039.20 Allied weekly claims.
Now we have Eastern Alliance, which is our workers' comp, and I believe this is just a policy payment. This is a payment to have the policy. I don't think it's claims.
Okay,
Pretty sure. Mark might know. This is
does
just
it have
for
any,
the policy.
does it have any employee names on it?
No, I think it's just for the policy.
Okay,
That's not workers' comp claims, it's just for the policy, paying for the policy.
It's probably for the stop loss.
Okay. I just want to verify with Mark that that's correct.
Looks cheap.
We prefer inexpensive.
what's the dollar amount, Donnie?
$1,390. February 9, 21 to February 9 of 22.
Yeah, I think that's just for the policy, it's not, no names on it or anything, so. Just wanted to double check and not say the wrong thing.
Yeah, that's what it is, okay.
Yeah, I'd make a motion to approve that.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. We approve Eastern Alliance claim at $1,390.
And I laid mail and some other stuff in front of you, including remote hours for Rhonda, which we usually don't do a motion on, we just have the report in front of you. There's, like I said, there's mail that came to you. The only other thing, I gave a copy of this to Mark. So it won't be addressed today. He's going to have to look this over and come up with an agreement just for our county.
Okay.
And what it is regarding Purdue Extension. Purdue no longer wants to be a middleman on paying for mileage and stuff. So Purdue Extension will be going straight to us with their mileage claims instead of it going to Purdue and then Purdue sending it to us.
Okay.
Purdue doesn't want to do that anymore, so there's going to be a little bit of a change. This was Fulton County, and they actually came up with this agreement for the commissioners to approve, which states all of that so that SBOA knows what's going on with the claims when we get them. And Mark does have a copy of this, so he'll be working on an agreement for us to bring at a future time. So when you get it, that's what it's about.
Okay.
I can pass this down if you guys want to.
I think I saw it. I think you sent me a
Yeah,
copy.
I think I emailed it to you also.
Did you want to see it, Steve?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I got a copy of that.
Because we've got time on it, it's just something that we'll just have to change some of
We would
the-
just basically reimburse them directly instead of going through.
Yeah, Purdue doesn't want to be the middleman anymore, so. Anyway, last thing I have is the monthly treasurer's report. And Treasurer Dyer is out here if you have questions on anything to do with the treasurer's report. Or if you have questions, you can ask Ed, and otherwise we just get a motion later and vote.
It's also got the health insurance items there too, our checking and our reserve.
Yeah. We just asked Kathy to put some more into checking this week,
Okay.
so.
You may have it on here, but is the American Rescue Plan money separated out on your report, or is that?
It is put into a fund.
It's in a total.
So it's tracked separately? Oh, it is put into a separate,
Has to be.
but that doesn't necessarily reflect.
No, that would be not in these records, it would not, it's on which fund it's actually.
Gotcha, okay.
But every penny's there, we have not touched any of it yet.
Okay.
Currently $1,013 a month.
Okay.
And I just sent to you all, and I think to Mark and Julie Marie, a recent video from National Association of Counties that is discussing further details on this. And I did get something just this morning from the Treasury Department. We have to, well, the auditors I have to go in and submit a report by August 31st, whether we've done anything or not. I'll have to put what Mark has come up with as far as an ordinance or something on, I don't know if it's an ordinance or what it is, Mark, but something is required that, and maybe you've already done it, an ordinance on, okay, we've accepted this money, we're gonna be working on a plan, da-da-da-da-da. And then I'll report that by August 31st, but it would have been for spending out of that through July 31st. So there won't be anything to report because we haven't spent it, which is the wise thing to do. We are being told until you know for sure what it can be used for.
Because we've already adopted an ordinance to accept the money, and
Yeah.
so.
And I
So
think,
that much is done.
I think,
Yeah,
Mark,
that's
it's something, there has to be, we have to get together a plan for use of the money, which I think last week I suggested maybe having a firm do that. Mark talked about Barnes and Thornburg, they're doing it. Baker Tilly's doing it. There are probably other firms that are doing it. But
Well, and I know I did see an email from Baker Tilly that says they basically have a template that kind of sets out.
to some degree, as much as they can while it's
Yeah,
still changing.
Yeah.
But when you watch the video that I sent out, when you get time, it discusses calculating the county revenue that has been discussed so much. And this gentleman from NACO giving this talk said that as far as the revenues go, you don't put in any of the federal grants that we received, or even if it passed through the state to come to us, you don't include that. You don't include any of the federal grant money, which will make it easier to calculate whether we have revenue loss or not. So,
So is that still relating to the ARP money? You kind
Yeah.
of lost me on.
yep, ARP. Yep. Like I say, if you get a chance to watch that video link that I sent you guys, or look at the NACO website, it'll be on there. It's very informative. If Julie Marie and Mark get a chance to watch it, they would certainly, as council, be able to inform both bodies of what the latest is and what they can do and so forth. Ed is also keeping up with all the latest things as treasurer, so our offices can work together on this when we can finally start putting together a plan to get some of that used.
One of the things I wondered, like you talked about, we're earning, what, $1,000 a month on
2013.
13. Does the interest that we earn from that money fall into the same spending parameters
No.
that the,
You
so
can
we
spend
can
that on
separate the
Yeah,
interest
that is
out and
separated
put that,
Anything you want to do.
Yeah.
okay.
Anything.
Which is not a bad thing that it's sitting in there, because you're gaining interest that can be used for, the only thing is like, what, $1,000 a month?
But it would still be tracked separately
Yes.
and, okay.
Okay, gentlemen, we need to
Yep.
accept this report here if there's no other questions.
So moved.
Second.
Motions are made and second to approve the county treasurer's monthly report.
Thank
I'd
you.
like to just catch you up. It's a busy month here in the treasurer's office. I've got a few things I just want you to all be aware of. The Xsoft tax software will be installed mid-month, and everything's on schedule for that. We're looking forward to get that project started. We have our SRI tax sale verification, where we dial in the houses that are going to be going for a tax sale. We have SRI, which is a vendor that does that. They'll be coming to my office, and we'll be going all over that. We started at the deadline with 41 properties. By the time the tax sale actually gets here, it will be down to about 15. Everybody pays their taxes.
Yeah.
So that's the ultimate thing. Kathy and I are going to be going to the Indiana County Treasurers Association Conference next week on Wednesday and Thursday. So we'll be out of the office those days. And then our bank request for performance on the main operating account. The deadline is coming up Friday, August 20th. I have letters out to all 5 banks. I believe I'm going to be getting proposals back from all 5 banks. We've never had that. So I'm looking forward to that. We will be opening those here at, on the last day of the month, August 31st. I have a scheduled time at 11 o'clock. I know you want to get through most of your other business, and then we'll spend a few minutes opening those up.
So those proposals would include, managing checking, savings,
Yes.
investment proposals, everything.
Not investment,
Not
investments.
investment.
no. It's a
Although I
separate.
consider investments with our highest interest-bearing account, I kind of consider those investments because I purposely put that in there to get as much interest back as I can. But I want to keep relationships with all 5 of our county banks, so I leave money in all 5 of those. State Board of Accounts likes you to do that for diversity. In case one bank, went completely belly up and we had all our money there, we could get it back eventually. It might take a couple of years to get it back, so we don't want to fall into that trap.
Yeah.
But I have money spread out all over. Everything's in good shape.
Good.
We can talk more about that, when we have our financial committee meeting, if you wish, because in all honesty, what we have to do on that day won't take very long. Okay?
Okay, thanks, Ed.
Any other
Yep,
questions?
thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
Yeah, Tony, you got anything else?
Nope.
Nope. Brad?
Morning.
Morning.
Morning, Brad.
Jason from the 4-H Fair. Just like to say a few words today.
Well, thank you guys. Fair went well, using the parking lot, just coming in to say thanks. And I come shake your hand, but I know everybody's still up in airs about that, so we'll just, yeah, it went well. We had a good fair and garage work, parking lot worked great. There's Brad's key back.
Good.
You had a lot of cars parked over there.
We did.
Yeah, it really looked good.
Yeah, it was
Good turnout.
great. We didn't have to tow any of them, so.
No, and thank you guys, seriously, they were, they had everything out of there by the morning. The gates were always shut, so thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jason.
Good.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Have a good day.
It was good to have an open fair again, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So the first thing this morning, we've been working on the source well pricing, and we, have that done. It's been okay to be able to use these. So we have it this morning. We have the pricing for the payload. So Paul's handing out the tabulation sheets, and this is a little different because we do already have the pricing. So we actually were able to fill it out, and nobody has to remember what we said. and fill it in.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
So we will start out with West Side Tractor, which is John Deere. And their price came in at $187,200. $187,200. And the next one. So McAllister Machinery, which would be Caterpillar. Their total was $205,280.43. $205,280.43.
That one upset Rex a little bit. Come on, Brad. Lower those amounts, would you?
When we start out,
We already got the lowest one starting out.
next one would be RPM Machinery, which would be case equipment is what they sell. And their total was $207,671.56. $207,671.56. So I guess at this time, it'd be a question for Mark. This is one of those, using this in a different circumstance or way of using it. We've had all these, actually came into us this morning. So, we've already had a chance to look through them because they weren't sealed. So are we allowed to ask them to go ahead and accept this, or do we need to take the normal?
So the lowest one was the 187, the John Deere?
Yes.
Yep, you can accept that one.
Okay, so at this point, we'd ask your permission to go ahead and accept the low bid from West Side Tractor, John Deere.
So they take a trade in now?
Yes,
We know, okay.
What'd they give you for that trade?
that was it. They give 16. Or they, right there, 15,000.
15.
You would accept that as the lowest responsible bid for that equipment line item.
Yeah, any additional questions?
I assume everybody spec'd out the same.
Yeah, so with Sourcewell, just kind of reiterate again, when Sourcewell sets this up, they take this company, this loader, the same loader size, compared to horsepower, what they can be, same size on this company. So when they do all three across the line.
It's as equal as it can be.
Yep, exactly. So if we would have wanted a bigger one, it just would have been the next size bigger, same thing across the line. And that's basically how Sourcewell handles it, so.
Yeah, and we checked into that, and they're using the appropriate procedures under bidding statutes to acquire, competitive bids for the equipment with open specs. That's what you need, and it's a nice tool to be able to use. Looks like you're able to gain some pretty competitive prices that way.
What engine does that John Deere have in it, do you know? Or
Well, that's a John Deere engine. Yeah, John Deere has their own engines. You mean size-wise?
Yes.
Trying to find it.
I mean,
Pretty all equal size wise?
Yeah, yes.
just so we don't get ourselves into a bad engine like we did with the trucks.
There's such a price difference there from the cat and the case, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if that cat wouldn't be a better,
Basically what happens is on a lot of these, it goes off the size of the loader.
Okay.
You know, the weight, and then you're gonna have some variation in horsepowers. So the horsepower is not gonna be the same on all of them, but it's close to handle that size of machine.
I think it's usually rated for lifting capacity and
Exactly.
torque and towing capacity and the things that, you know, they produce whatever horsepower they need for that pump to generate the power that you need.
For a case on that 3 or 2,000 hour planned maintenance, is there a dollar value associated with that?
Case, that would be the,
I mean, would that affect the bid?
Well, it would have been more, because you're gonna pay for that bid.
the warranty that we have there is standard warranty with it. If you wanted more, you'd have to pay for more.
Right, but I guess what I'm saying is the case compared to the John Deere, the case has the 2,000 hour planned maintenance, whereas the John Deere doesn't.
Oh, I see what you're asking.
Well, you mean the maintenance side, not so much the warranty.
Correct, yeah. Because I mean, if you've got a 3-year, 2,000 hour planned maintenance, there's got to be a dollar value associated with that too. But I don't know what that would be.
Well, and that's, I mean, I'm
We're
just,
looking at $20,000 more though, too.
but there's still more anyhow. There's still.
So it wouldn't amount to the
It wouldn't
20,000.
matter on that. No,
Wouldn't
'cause
amount
they were
to the
higher
20.
bid anyhow.
Right, but I mean,
Yeah.
they're offering more. That's what I'm.
Well, but John Deere still has the
We still got the three.
3-year, 3,000 hour warranty figured into theirs too.
Gotcha.
I'm sorry, we did not, it's right here on the,
Sorry,
the
I should have
spec
made
sheet.
printouts of these.
Yeah, we should have gave you printouts of these two.
Yeah,
Yeah, John Deere hasn't specified two.
I can get you guys copies of these.
3-year, 3,000 hour.
I just wanted to make sure that you guys are comfortable.
Yeah. And honestly
didn't.
too, a lot of times when you bid this stuff, like Mark was saying, it goes off, it's a 3.5 yard bucket. And that's a lot of times what they rate their specs off of is bucket size.
right.
So the engine horsepower can vary and all that, like Mark said. But yeah, it goes off the bucket size. And we did a 3.5 yard bucket.
Okay, any other questions? Nope.
Sounds good.
I'll take a motion.
So move.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded that we go ahead and approve the purchase from Westside Tractor, John Deere, payloader, $187,200.
Yes, thank you. All right, the next item I have up is, we've been working on a 1-ton dump truck, and we have the specs ready. We just would like the permission now to go ahead and send the specs out, start the bid process, advertise, all the stuff we need to do. So I'd like to ask your permission to get that process started for a 1-ton dump truck.
Okay, need a motion?
So move.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded to go ahead and proceed with that progress.
Okay, the next thing, I got an email from NDOT, and we have been okayed, my paperwork was turned in, everything is okay to start negotiations now with the firm for the next 4-year bridge cycle. So we've got the okay to start that, so now, I'll have to get with you guys and we'll get started from there,
Okay,
so.
Okay.
I
Is
just
that for
wanted
bridge inspections?
to- bridges, 4-year cycle bridge inspections.
Okay.
All right, the next thing, I've got 2 utility permits. Both of them are for I&M. So they're in 2 different locations though. Can we go ahead and just do them both at the same time since they're both I&M, correct?
Yep.
yes.
All right, the first one will be on County Road 650 North between 200 West and 300 West. And it's a new house being built. So they're just going to go from one side of the road or under the road to install a new entrance for them. The other one, excuse me, the other one is on 900 South between State Road 116 and 650 West. And it's the same scenario, a new house is being built. So they're going to actually put a pole This one, they're gonna have a pole and just run it across over the road to another pole. So both of them are for new houses.
Neither one affects the road itself.
No, no.
To make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion's made second to go ahead and approve I&M permits, and Brad?
And I have copies for you already, Tony, so.
Awesome. I will need it.
Okay, now we'll just, while you guys are signing that, just give you some updates. You remember the 1100 South with the Upper Wabash River Basin Committee project? They actually are getting started on that project today. So I just want to give you an update on that. And also, if you remember, culvert 406 on 350 North, it would have been the Brenner tile job. That was bid quite a while ago. KBL actually started on that yesterday.
I forget why that was delayed. I know it was delayed. I forget why.
Just everybody's so busy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and he said he was really wanting to have it done before school starts, so he's cutting her close.
Yeah.
They started yesterday. And it should only take them a week and a half at the most, maybe, but.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then the only other thing, excuse me, our normal, mowing, weed whacking, and patching roads. So
Tree trimming.
I haven't quite started tree trimming yet,
Oh.
but we will be tree trimming. Yes.
Thank you.
And that's all I have.
Okay.
How does that work? Kind of back to tree trimming. There's a neighbor I know, he's got this huge tree that leans out over the road. How do we deal with that? Is that all on the private property owner?
Basically, if it is out of our right of way, we don't normally go in and just take them down.
Right.
If it's over the road and we see it's gonna be a hazard, at that point, we might ask permission. But normally, we're not going to unless they would come down on the road.
Who determines that? Do you just go look at it?
Yeah, we'll look at it. We actually just went and looked at this one yesterday. It's way, I shouldn't say way, it's out of our right of way by about 10 feet. It's a
No,
dead tree.
because there's one right past our house like that, so
Okay.
I don't know. If
Is
you
that
get up,
that big one?
yeah,
That's a big one.
it's a huge one.
Yeah, that's I know that's out of the right of way, but it's one of them where
It's
really,
it's
if it's out of
dead.
the right of way, technically, I think it's landowners
Okay.
until it comes down on the road. I mean, we would like to avoid that, but it's,
Sure.
yeah, you get a little touchy with some of those trees. We've learned that.
If we have some branches that are hazards that are looming over the right of way, I think we could probably go in and trim those. So I can do some research on that if you have a couple that we need to deal with, but
Yeah, if you.
probably it'd be good to talk to the landowners first, and then if we run into problems, then we can figure out legally what we can do.
And, there again, we are working on the bucket truck, and that's one of those, that would be a good one.
Yeah.
If we had it, we could just pull up on the road and ride over the road, take care of what we need to,
Yeah.
but we are still working on that.
Yeah, because that was
Okay.
probably 5 foot in
Hey,
diameter.
Brad, on County Road 700 South, there was some discussion, I know there was some talk back and forth about potentially getting more right-of-way on the north side. Has that materialized? Do we know? Because I don't want to order appraisals until I know exactly what we're requiring.
Not at this point. I was kind of holding off till they get the sewer project and all that done.
Okay,
And then eventually, I think we need to go talk to the school again before we really get too far into it.
okay. Because I don't want to order appraisals there if we're going to need more right-of-way.
Yeah, I think we need to go talk to the school again.
Okay, because they were talking about putting a sidewalk in
Yeah.
and wanting more
We're gonna
right-of-way,
need more right away if we do that, so.
which we'd have to update our survey and,
Exactly.
okay. All right.
Okay. Anything else, Brad?
Nope, I don't have anything.
Okay.
You guys?
We're good to go.
Thank
Hey,
you,
I
guys.
appreciate you taking us around the other day.
That was
So-
good. That was good to
Yeah.
go see that. It really was.
So is that anything we want to discuss, or are you going to wait? Do you have any kind of thoughts or proposals or anything, or?
You're not ready yet.
We've been down, we're not quite ready yet.
Okay.
We are actually still, we've looked into some past minutes and that kind of stuff. We're doing a little more research, but yeah, we're not quite ready for that yet,
Okay,
so.
but
Okay,
yeah,
very
we
good.
appreciate
Yep.
the road trip.
Yep, that worked out good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good day. Jack, I don't see Rick here, so we're gonna bring you up.
Hey, good morning.
Morning, Jack.
So you get a copy of the memo of like what race probation is or anything? You got a copy?
I don't know, but I've got one that says Adams County Probation Department, but about Rhonda. But I don't know
You said-
if that's the one.
Nope, didn't get that.
This is Rhonda. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You mean make any copies
No, I think I'm
for
good.
press or anything?
I got
You got them? Okay, good.
I think I've been over here quite a bit the past couple of months, so sorry for being repetitive, but I was trying to at least be, I guess, more detailed about race probation. I don't think I had a
Okay.
chance to really kind of talk about the details of it, if you had any specific questions. We're up and running using it. It's still kind of a small scale until we get our part-time field officer position up and running, and then we're gonna try and definitely boost things up. This is the flyer that Judge Conrad put together, so that way if somebody's coming in race probation or wants to know kind of the gist of it, it kind of gives a brief detail about it. So unless there's any specific questions, I can kind of just run through the model, like what Judge Conrad and I talked about, and kind of this flyer a little bit, and if there's any details, I'm glad to answer them. So the name Grace Probation is loosely based off of Hope Probation. There's a lot of intensive probation models across the country, but one we looked at is from Hawaii. There's Hawaiian's Opportunity Probation Enforcement that was started in the early 2000s. That caught a lot of attention nationally. And as close as Allen County, they used that model and they renamed it Hoosiers Opportunity Probation Enforcement. So it's still Hope, but it's just Hoosiers instead of Hawaiians. It seemed to work really well for them up there. We talked to Wells County Probation. And also, we took a lot of the things that we learned from drug court and going through those trainings and just put it together for Grace Probation. Instead of being redundant for Hope, we just decided to change it for Grace because the reason that people are coming to Grace Probation is that the court's giving them grace instead of incarceration because they've tried all sorts of different things or they're really struggling with all the other resources in the community, that we're going to do the best we can with this intensive model to convince them to stay sober and get to their appointments and be law-abiding citizens. So that's how Grace Probation came about name-wise and the model itself. We're very fortunate in this type of aspect that Judge Conrad can use it not just for substance abuse, but also mental health. So we've noticed a lot of people that have substance use issues also have mental health issues, or might start that they have mental health issues and they use substances to kind of deal with their mental health issues at the same time. So it gets very messy. For drug court, you had to be very specific to have a substance abuse problem. So fortunately, we have more flexibility with Judge Conrad. He can use either or. The phase system is set up for a year instead of 2 years with drug court. There's nothing against having it 2 years, but it's more flexible for the 1 year. It could be somebody that is getting sentenced on a new offense and coming in, or it could be somebody on a probation violation. The prosecutor, the defense attorney, and the judge realize, hey, we've tried home detention, we've tried jail, we've tried prison, and it just seems to keep coming back. Let's try Grace, and maybe instead of putting them on for the full year, we'll start them out for 6 months on it. And then after they complete those phases and they have review hearings, the judge can say, okay, you've made a lot of progress, we don't need as intensive supervision, we try regular probation. Some of that flexibility helps, especially if people, we have people that work in construction and they may live in Adams County, but they have to run to Roanoke for a 14-hour day job. So having more flexibility with the phases and less supervision allows us to be more working and have more flexibility at the time with their family. Otherwise, if we're so intensive all the way through, it seems like we tie them up from having job opportunities where they get points at work and things like that. So that's where we feel very confident with this 4-phase 1 year approach compared to having 2 years. So we're looking out to see how that goes. With this, if somebody tests positive for drug screen, fails to go to their substance abuse appointment for their counselor, it's very likely they're going to be incarcerated within 24 hours. So it's a very quick approach to, if they're not following through with the most important aspects of their treatment and their supervision, that they're going to be incarcerated. It's kind of like a reminder every day they wake up is like, if you either make that choice to stay sober and go to your counseling appointment, or you decide to use and skip that appointment, you're going to have a repercussion. So nothing to be all doom and gloom, but if they screw up and they say, hey, Jack, yeah, I know I struggled because we got in an argument at home and I decided to use instead of calling my counselor, and we can work with them because we know, okay, you have remorse. There's something we can work with there. Otherwise, if they just blow us off and they say, well, this is too much, I'd just rather go back to using. Then we can say, all right, well, unfortunately, you we can use this spot for somebody else that wants the help. Unfortunately, there's back incarceration with the sheriff and deputy here. So that's kind of the approach of it. We have a lot of the great tools still from drug court we're going to use. It's just we're going to have a different approach with it and hopefully be more flexible for us and Adams County.
So basically the difference between this and regular probation or this and work release is it's more intensive, more selective, or?
Correct. So with grace probation, we could utilize jail, work release, or home detention. So even if they get on probation and they're struggling, we can use the work release facility for however long that the judge decides as a consequence. So that way, if we know that they have unstable housing and that's a big problem, then we can say, okay, we're going to incarcerate work release to keep your job, have a sober living environment, and kind of get you back on track. We've also utilized, just even with probationers, it doesn't have to be grace probation, drug court, with just regular probation, we talk with like Park Center Residential, and other detox facilities in the state. So there's other resources we can use without putting them in the jail. Drug court was a lot more limited. They really wanted to do more treatment and less incarceration, which is fine, but unfortunately sometimes they make some pretty poor setbacks or poor decisions that helps the court to have a little bit more flexibility with that. So it just less tie-ups from the grants.
So would this end up using less personnel than what drug court did as far as having drug court every Thursday? And now you're just going to have the case managers involved? And
Yep. So with drug court every Thursday afternoon, they have the approach to have counselors, the prosecutors, law enforcement, the judge, drug court coordinator, probation officers there on a routine basis every Thursday. So that would tie people up for different appointments or things they did. We're not scheduling and blocking out every Thursday afternoon. We're doing it as needed. So fortunately, we have really good communication with local therapists or counselors, and we're taking care of that on the regular business hours. And then if they do violate, when we come to court, they just throw us in the docket. They say, hey, here's an update, how things are going. We recommend to tweak this, or working with their therapist on doing this. And that way, the hearing itself for each person is going to be maybe 20 minutes at that time instead of blocking out 2 or 3 hours. We're pulling Brad from public defender's office every Thursday afternoon. So we feel like it's going to be helpful to kind of let everybody work their own schedules, and then we'll deal with the emergencies as needed.
sounds like you're working in good cooperation with the work release program.
Yeah, that's going to be a big help.
Yeah, good.
So don't plan on you adding more beds to the work release building, but we're trying to use that as much as we can.
I'll get the claims submitted for all of us up here to join you in Hawaii to check this out. Mark, you good? Hawaii?
Never been there.
If you can approve the flight tickets today, that'd be great.
Okay. Shannon, do you need to go as HR? Sure. Okay, there you go. We'll take big group.
What line item have you found that I don't know anything about?
I'll let you know later, Rex.
Can you get us ukuleles too?
Yeah,
All right.
and some of those flowery things.
Well, it sounds good. This is being implemented as we speak, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So
Very good.
Get that through
I'll give you
SBLA.
details and we'll make sure you get any questions answered before we.
Well, it looks like an effective and efficient way to move forward for these people.
Thank you. Yeah, we believe so.
Well,
If there's any problems, I'll be honest and I'll say, hey, we need to fix this. Open to suggestions.
yeah,
Positive for me.
try it and see how it works. That's all you can do.
Is both courts using this?
Right now, it's just been Judge Conrad. I haven't heard anything from Judge Kupalon yet. I think he maybe be talking with Kupalon or Conrad to see how things play out first. Let us get about 2 feet or 2 legs and start running with it before he starts jumping in. But yeah, I haven't talked to Judge Kupalon yet.
Okay.
Very good. Yeah, thanks for your update on that, Jack. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions, guys? Okay.
All right.
Very good. Keep us posted on
Yep. Let me know when the flights are in.
Gotcha.
it.
I just gotta have Mark go down to SBOA and ask if it's okay if we do
I was
it.
just gonna say, they're pretty darn close to us, Tony.
I don't know why they wouldn't.
I don't know.
Seems
Josh,
reasonable.
you're up. Golden medals.
So Daniel asked me to bring these in. These are the contracts for the rounding providers for primary care and for mental health care.
Right, right. Mark, you're gonna wanna look at these. This is like, we don't have a medical director out of Golden Meadows, so this would be a
Do I need
a
copies
professional
from you,
service
Andy?
that we have.
I'll need somebody's copy so I can put it in the minutes later.
No, that's the only copy we have right now. There's actually two different providers, I believe.
Actually, I think the rounding group actually has mental health and.
They got them both? Okay, okay, but there's two different contracts
Yes,
that have to deal with that.
yeah. I know that Kendra was going around having everybody sign off on it.
This would really, really take the pressure off of Kendra, from what I understand, because our residents would not have to be taken out of the facility. So we wouldn't, be insured on help anyway. We wouldn't have to provide transportation for them and so on. So an NP, a nurse practitioner would come in under the advice of a doctor and become basically like our medical director. So it's be a big help at no cost to us. They go ahead and build insurance and everything and take care of that.
So would that involve creating new standing orders and protocols for the CNAs and nursing?
Well,
nursing assistants?
Shannon is already working up a job description for a nurse manager. Okay, so, we would not have a director of nursing at this point.
But I mean, if we use
Accept that.
these agencies as medical directors, whether they would develop any new policies, standing orders, protocols for the people that
I don't know, I'll let Mark
Working there,
read through them and see what all the contracts are. They do go, I think the hospital uses the same group for their extended care facility.
I believe so.
Because I know Kendra has worked with them before, and so has Danielle.
I think that's how it all got introduced.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Anyway, we'll let Mark do that. Yeah, okay, go ahead, Josh.
And then also, I do have we've been searching for a pest control company taking bids, and I have a bid from Rose that I would like you guys to take a look at. And I think this is ultimately who we're going to end up going with, because we contacted Norms for monthly maintenance and no response.
No response yet back from them.
And
Probably doesn't have enough help.
that's
Could very well be, that could very well
Well,
be.
he does mine down there, and I know he doesn't have enough help.
Was there any different changes on the ones that we had looked at before?
Yes, so the initial charge is still the same, but they are doing the initial clean out plus follow-up, plus a third if necessary. So I think that was kind of the way that they got around, like added in a 6-day guarantee.
Okay, and you feel very comfortable with this quote, you're well familiar with them? Yeah.
I would be familiar with them and
You reviewed
how the
these?
processes work. I'm very confident that
You looked at these?
it's going to get taken care of.
Not sure how we pay for
So they'll also come in 2 times per year. To maintain.
Yeah, it'll be twice per year with K9. Then twice fall and spring, they'll come in and do exterior applications. And then I have also informed the rest of the staff that if we ever have any issues, I'm state licensed in pesticide. So I can do applications in between those with no issues. So I plan on keeping up on that.
Would we still use Chet's pest control for what he does?
At this point, with the way that their contract is, no, we would be dropping Chet.
All right.
Because they would also be doing a monthly program for the rest of the pest control.
Yeah, we had 3 different quotes on that, Mark. We had, I think it was Zero Pest Control was one, Norms, and then Rose.
Yes.
on that. And Rose seems to be have the better one according to what Danielle and Josh has
Okay.
reviewed. So, any questions on it, gentlemen? Do you?
No, they seem to have a pretty complete program and they would be able to get on it right away.
Yeah, it looks like it's pretty in-depth.
Sooner the better.
Yes.
Yeah, so if you're ready to take a vote on that, I'll need a motion and a second. Unless there's anything else.
Second.
Okay, a motion's been made second that we approve Rose Pest Solutions for golden medals. And I guess I need to go ahead and sign this contract down at the bottom here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we appreciate your involvement too, as far as being able to help with control.
Yeah, I'm, like I've explained to Danielle, even with her exiting, my goal is to take over some of the responsibilities that maintenance should be taken on as a, the way that it should be. So I am more than happy and willing to lend whatever expertise that I have to make sure that our issue get taken care of.
All right, cool.
Okay, is this all you need then, Josh?
Yeah.
Tony, you need a copy of that too, don't you?
Probably. If they want to copy it over there and just email it to me, you can, scan it and email it.
Yeah.
if you want.
Yeah, we can handle that.
And the things that you gave Mark as well, if you want to send those to me. They can just
Yeah,
scan them and email
on
them.
those contracts, looking through those, it's a 30-day out clause, which is always good, so they can be terminated 30 days prior written notice. But for the services to be provided, how are those gonna be paid and reimbursed, or how are they gonna be paid to the service provider? Is that by the individual's health insurance? I'm not,
I would imagine direct billing, because I think the way that they're designed is they're supposed to handle everything that deals with getting insurance and then get reimbursed from insurance.
are they billing Medicaid? Because I would imagine most of those individuals are on Medicaid.
That's what I understand, yeah. Is if they bill Medicaid, Medicare, or whatever insurance they have.
Okay. So how are we providing that now? We were doing it in-house
No, right now, they take residents to.
to the hospital?
To the hospital, to the doctor's office, to wherever they have to go.
And so
It's a
then it's
position
handled
called-
there?
Yeah, it's a position called A&A, Activities and Appointments, and that's that person's job, is to drive people to where
Okay.
they need to go.
So instead of doing that, we're just gonna have them come in and do it in-house,
Right.
and then they'll bill it
To the
directly
insurance
to the,
company. Yeah,
whatever plan they're qualified for, or whatever plan they're in.
yes.
Okay. So we don't need to have anything in our budget for this.
I don't think so, but I wouldn't hold me on that.
Okay,
Well, my understanding is Danielle said there wasn't any cost to the county
okay,
at all. That's what she had related to me.
That's the way I understood it as well.
Okay.
At our meetings.
is this something that you're wanting to take action on today?
If you're okay with the contracts,
Yeah, I mean, the main thing I look for is the out clause. I look for the termination provisions, and so it's a 30-day termination notice. If it turns out that things aren't working out, then we can terminate the contract. There is some strange language in here, but, how soon, I mean, I would assume they'd be ready to start, fairly quickly.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah. I think they
I
could,
think that if we were to take the week, we'd be okay to read that over thoroughly and discuss if needed and then approve it next week.
that's what I'm thinking. I'd like to have a little bit more time there's a lot of language in here that has to do with some, unanticipated costs and things like that, which I haven't had a chance to really digest, but the termination provision is fine. The payment provision is not real clear, but yeah, I think maybe what we do is just take it under advisement. I'll make sure Danielle's got copies and we can look at this over. Danielle,
Is that
Shannon.
something, is that
Why did I
something you
say
would need?
Danielle? I said Danielle because Danielle's the director.
One more
Shannon.
thing that can help.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
We
yeah,
better do it right.
So are these contracts, are these companies associated with the hospital at all, or not at all?
No,
Not
it's
this
an
house.
actual company, and I believe their name is called Rounding Providers, and that's what they do. They're an LLC. And they work independently, and they go to nursing homes, nursing homes, and residential
Yep.
care homes, and they literally round on patients in homes to provide relief for the people that are there, to make sure they're getting medical care and things like that.
So that's not a service that we would approach the hospital about then, probably.
I
No.
don't.
I doubt if the hospital would
No,
do
they
it for
wouldn't
free.
do it, yeah.
Okay.
Well, and then if it's,
Just a guess.
yeah, and this, you know, the administrative side of it, you know, how it's getting paid for and billed, them taking care of that relieves, you know, a lot of, issues with the home and having to make appointments and drive them out to the hospital.
You
And
know,
I can
part
see
of
some
the only
efficiencies.
reason I asked that is because we used to have, you know, that service contracted, like when Alicia was out at the jail.
Mhm.
But that was different too.
Yep, that was different. That was for jail, not for Gold Meadows.
How many copies of that will we need next week?
Well, if the hospital's using it,
Probably 3, yeah.
Yeah.
they're
I'll
using it
need
for
one
their
up there.
extended care,
I'll make a
so.
copy.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
true.
mean,
For Shannon to
sure.
look at.
All right.
It makes sense that, yeah, plus the fact it takes a lot of pressure off our nursing staff
Sure.
out there.
Yeah.
All right, and the other help too.
Yeah, and with the
Okay, so we'll take that, we need a motion to take that under advisement and Mark.
Yep, we'll bring him back next week. I'll get a copy to Shannon here.
Okay, motions have made, seconded, we go ahead and take these contracts for golden medals, Dr. Medical Director Services under advisement. Okay,
Thanks, Josh.
thank you, sir. Shannon, I think you're up.
Oh, boy.
We both do. I'm still trying to finish up the last thing.
What?
Need a restroom break?
Can I do any restroom break?
Depends, you got quite a stack of papers there, I don't know.
I'm gonna hand out everything at once. There you go.
Good, great. Actually, I'm gonna have to go to bed for some.
I'm just gonna give you everything at one time.
I got so many papers up there and I'm
I
only
think we're
working with the one hand, it's pretty hard to.
I think we're doing, the ones that I'm involved in are just the 2, right?
Yeah, but just in case y'all need it. Here's the next one.
We got that one.
I think you all had actually received these
We did.
in the past, so you already had them.
And you
We
all should
just,
have
had made changes to the job descriptions of the transfer deputy.
Thanks for printing that off, because I couldn't get that thing printed off on mine
No, okay.
for some reason. I had your email.
And this is my last one. Last one. Thank you.
You want me to do those 2 first, or you want to do something else first?
We'll start with the one that I have on top. So the first thing, is that the secretary in the public defender's office has resigned. Her last day is gonna be sometime in September, I believe it's September 3rd. So I asked the office manager over there to get the job description updated, so we could get it posted on Indeed. And the top copy that you have with the job title secretary are those changes. So there's just a few things that came out. There's nothing that went in. And then there's one change on the bottom of page 2 to remove 2 different types of software knowledge that's not required for that position. So I'm just seeking approval on this to remove these items and then get this posted to Indeed and start recruiting for this position.
Steve, did you get this? Did you get an email on this one? Did your thing?
On this one?
Yeah.
No.
Would this change the band?
Not to my knowledge, no. And I looked at both of them, and it looks like what happened is that maybe Sylvan's position was this job description, and then Gayla's position was also this job description. There wasn't a separate one. So this, right now, as it is without these parts taken out, is more geared towards
It's more
Sylvan's
representative
position.
of what is actually being done, right?
I see.
Right.
Yeah.
This is Sylvan's position, but to take out
Right.
these pieces is Gayla's position. So that's what we're trying to get at, is to get something that I can have to post on Indeed.
And these recommendations come directly from Brad?
Yeah, yep, from his office.
All right. All right.
So I think what I need to do next week is bring back another one, maybe with a first Sylvan's position and just say, hey, now they're separated. Because I think before it was just one description for both employees, and now we need to have them. Because like Gayla's position doesn't have supervisory responsibilities, but Sylvan's position does.
Right.
It supervises Gayla's position.
I see. Do we need to prove this today?
I would prefer if we could, if you're not comfortable, that's okay. I do want to get it up on Indeed and post it on the board as soon as possible, just to start recruiting for it, just in case it takes some time.
I guess as long as Brad is comfortable with it, I mean, I would be fine with that.
Okay.
Was that a motion?
Yeah.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made, second, that we go ahead and approve the new job descriptions for the Secretary of the Public Defender's Office.
All right, so the next one that we have up is the deputy honor transfer job description. It's the one with the blue on it. And I'm gonna let someone speak to that a little bit.
Let me finish my typing here on the last motion. You all had already had this
Right.
in the past, and Stan's very aware of it. Whoops, I almost erased something I just typed. That'd be bad. Basically, when our payroll and HR person left to spend more time with Mark Burry, and the HR coordinator was hired, what we have discovered is that there is truly much more HR work that needs done than we had thought. It's fair to say. So rather than trying to hire another person to get on the finance side and help Bree on that side, we decided to take a less expensive route, which means that there are certain things that only, well, it's Bree in that position now, and it would be finance and chief deputy and all that stuff. And Shannon will be, when she has time to learn some of this, to be a backup of a backup in an emergency type situation, she will do so. But going forward, the rest of the office, which would be the transfer deputy, the deputy auditor, and actually Christie in that position, the settlement deputy, she will have more things to do, but it's not the finance side. It's probably things that will be given to the other two to help on the finance side, meaning that Christie may have to take some of their tax side stuff. Does that make sense? So Christie will be busier, which I personally would like to see compensation for everybody in there, but I know the way the classifications work, that there really is no job description change for her. So there's not a lot that we can do under the current policy rules. But for the other two, they will each be doing financial duties, including some quietus, and I think it's there highlighted in your job descriptions. We will have to get them onto Lao, and then Bree and myself can provide them with we have security over who can get in there. So those two will have to get in there to do some of this extra work in order to give the finance and payroll deputy a little more time to get claims. And well, I don't need to go into everything we do in the office because it's a lot. And these two will be doing, I don't know how much more it's going to add to them, but I would say 30 to 40% more work on a different duty, different description under the finance side. So that's why we are trying to get a change for those two job descriptions.
Well, and I don't know, do you want me to speak to it as far as from the wage review committee?
You can speak to it however you want to speak to it.
Yeah, when it was presented at the wage review committee, our initial thought, which is just a 3-person committee, was that those financial retraining and additional trainings could be put onto one of these positions. But as we looked at it, and in talking to you and in talking to Shannon, actually both of these people needed to have that additional training, the additional duties between the two of them. So at that point, these came back to the original job description changes as you had originally presented them.
Yeah, it ended up being, if you try to put it on one, it's going to be too much for that person because they already have, I mean, we've had record amounts of deeds and everything else coming through. So they keep busy with all of that already. But this added to just one would be,
That's why I
way
almost
too
wonder, should it be good if we address both of these at the same time, or do you want to address one and then the other, or what do you think would be a good,
I think we could do both at the same time.
so?
I mean, they're relatively the same additional responsibilities.
Right.
There's a little bit of variance, and it's not that these positions are gonna fully take on the stuff that we've added, it's that they're gonna assist with the stuff that we've added. So they're gonna be 30 to 40% responsible for these items. So it's gonna be a collaborative group effort of 3 people working on one thing versus one person being solely responsible. And it'll be, it'll take some of that pressure off of 3 to be solely responsible for that item.
But the main difference from the wage review committee's recommendation is that both of these people would need to be trained with the additional training and the additional job responsibilities instead of just one. So,
correct.
Yeah, so basically our responsibility is to accept or approve the job descriptions.
Yeah. Does that make sense, or do you have thoughts on?
Let me think. So both ladies are doing the same job, correct?
I'll have some too.
No, they do different jobs right now.
But they can do either or.
I don't think that they can necessarily do each other's jobs.
They are currently, they all have, on that side of the office, have tax duties, plat books, deeds, splits, all that side of the stuff. That's not waning in any way, it's increasing. So they have all of that, but now what we are doing is adding additional duties to them that they will do that is more on the finance side. So they are dipping over into the finance side as well as the tax side. Because quite frankly, with one short in the office, it's either hire a whole nother person, which would cost a lot more, or have these guys do it with increased job descriptions. I mean, it's basically, we did this route instead of just going out and seeking someone else in the office, even though we're one short. And part of that was because of the savings that it would provide for the county, because there's no additional benefits or anything. It would just be moving up in a 1, 2, and any 5 for those two.
Because reading the 2 of them, 7 and 8 and 10 and 11 are exactly the same. And 12 on the one and 14 on the other is exactly the same. And 11 is assist with organizing, and 13 is scans in the county commissioner, county council minutes. Them are the only 2 differences I see.
Yeah, and I think Shannon addressed why they are similar. It's because they both will be doing all of these things. They both will be involved in quietus. They both will be involved in the finance side because it's too much to just put on one person. I can't in good conscience go tell one of the two that everything is going to be put on them. And even though the other one's going to be doing it too, sorry, you don't get moved up. Because they're both doing those duties
And we're gonna keep them
together.
equal in the office, though.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes,
Well,
yes.
That's what I
That's
was,
the goal, yeah.
that's what I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
getting at.
Yeah,
But the job
Okay.
descriptions
Yeah.
properly reflect what they would be doing.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what
Okay.
we're approving,
All right,
the job descriptions.
okay. I don't have a problem with that.
I would make a motion to accept both job descriptions, or do you want to do them individually?
We
Should
can-
we do them individually?
We
I
can,
think we ought to do them together, don't we?
we can do them together. I mean, it's,
All right, I would make that motion.
I would second that.
okay, motions have made and seconded that we go ahead and approve the job descriptions as they've been presented to us for the auditor's office.
Thank you.
So we'll skip the employment. The next one is everybody's favorite topic, COVID-19 guidelines. So I came to you guys last week and I asked about having some guidelines in place for what to do when an employee is either test positive for COVID or is exposed to COVID. This is what Holly and I put together based on CDC guidelines. I did email this to you guys last week, and Dr. Ainsworth did see this as well, and he approved it as long as we go with CDC guidelines. Mark and I talked, and I added a blurb on the back page, the second paragraph from the bottom, that starts with the American Rescue Plan Act. We felt it was important to make it clear that as it stands right now, there is no federal law that pays employees for being off for having COVID or being exposed to COVID, like was similar under the FFCRA last year. So they will be required to use paid benefit leave in the event that they have an exposure or test positive.
That's the way it stands right now, unless that policy would be modified by the county council.
What do we do in case of someone comes down with COVID and they have no,
They just be unpaid.
okay,
Effective.
it won't go against the record or anything?
It'd be just like any unpaid
Right. I was just
leave for
curious.
sickness now. Yes, sir.
I was wondering, with that, this council, the commissioners have the right to extend 2 weeks of paid sick leave for people once every 5 years, correct? Could we put into this thing if the employee has done everything they can as far as being vaccinated, but they still get it and they're still sick? Could the department head come to you to ask for that time where it won't count against our policy of once every 5 years for abnormal sickness or something like that, when it's strictly related to COVID? Because true, if you're vaccinated, you shouldn't be that sick, things like that, but people are still getting sick. So I'm wondering if an employee is vaccinated but still gets sick and has to miss work, could we come to you as a department head and ask you for that assistance in that time frame where it won't count towards the once every 5 year type of illness request?
Well, they would have to approve a long-term illness, that they would have to, that 2 weeks is only after all paid benefits are exhausted.
Correct. But what I'm getting at, so our employees don't have to burn through their time they have, especially I have some younger officers that don't have that much comp time accrued. And if they're off for 5, 6 days, they've wiped out all their sick time, they're getting into comp time and all that. I'm just asking, throwing this out as an idea, since this body has.
It'd have to be approved by the county council. It'd have to.
That's council?
Absolutely, because it involves, a paid time. The commissioners could recommend it to the council and say that, for a COVID-related illness, we would like to see some sort of benefit in place so that they don't have to use up paid time, and we would pay a certain amount of time, and it's possible that could be recovered under ARP money for, lost COVID revenues, to recover revenues, and that's something that we're actually going to put on the agenda for the next council meeting.
Okay.
We're going to talk about it, but it's up to the county council.
But when we come to ask for that 2 weeks, isn't that the commissioners that approve the 2 weeks extension?
They do, but that's only, that's per current county policy, and that's only if you have had an approved extended illness
And it burned everything.
and has burned everything else up.
Gotcha.
So we're not comparing apples to
No,
apples.
okay. I didn't know them since they that, but that's something you guys are looking at on the council side?
Yeah, I think that's gonna be
Okay.
on the council agenda
Okay.
next week, and it'd be up to them.
So outside of the money part of this, do you guys approve these guidelines as I've written them? That this is the procedure that we will follow in the event that an employee tests positive or is exposed to COVID?
Recommended by Dr. Ainsworth, Mark, and you've done it, so.
Yeah, Shannon's reviewed it, and that's why we added that caveat there to make clear that, this doesn't change, unpaid leave.
Right, so last year, you guys know about the FFCRA, the big law that came out that paid employees when they qualified for XYZ reason. Well, that law, it was not valid as of December 31st, 2020.
Right.
And then under the American Rescue Plan, there's a new little caveat to where local government is eligible for those tax credits, but do you pay it? And then you take a chance whether you're not gonna get the money back, but it's totally voluntary. So there's still no money involved up until this point. That could change. They could pass another law that says,
Sure.
yes, you are gonna get paid, but as of right now, as it stands right now, we just need some kind of guidance on what to do in the event that, the employee is exposed to something.
Should this policy address them working from home
I thought
after
about
they,
that.
after they test positive?
I thought about that, and that was something that I wanted to talk to Mark about. I think that we should try to get these guidelines out for the time being, because the working from home is kind of seldom to none in a sense. There's not, most of our employees, from my understanding, don't have that ability. So I'd rather get this done and then talk to Mark about what we can do for working from home, and if it's the department head's decision, I don't know how you guys handled it last year. So I would need some.
Even if we offered them that opportunity, if it's approved by the department head, to work from home.
I think that's a case-by-case basis based upon department to department, and at the present time, after all of this stuff expired last year, you basically said everybody back to work in the house. There's not
Right.
going to be working from home unless there's an extenuating circumstance that necessitates it, and I think you leave it at that. These guidelines here are just the leave guidelines, for sickness. And so I don't think you want to complicate this by putting
Right.
anything in here about saying they can work from home and that's an option, because then everybody reads that and says, well, now that's back on the table and everybody can work from home. That's not at all what you're saying.
Right.
But if a department head approached us on an individual basis and said, hey, I've got somebody with no benefit time, they tested positive, but they feel good and want to work from home, the department head could evaluate that.
And that's something that the commissioners would have to address on a case-by-case basis.
So,
But that's a slippery slope.
yeah. But I guess as far as determining leave, I would approve that, or make a motion to approve this as presented.
Okay.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to go ahead and approve the Adams County COVID-19 guidelines.
I'm gonna get this email to all users and post it on the bulletin board,
Yep,
Okay.
okay?
sounds good.
And then the last thing that I wanted to discuss today is the paid time off policy that you guys have in front of you. This was something that was created, and I think it got to the point where you guys actually approved it, but it didn't go to council last summer. So I took that existing policy and I just made some changes to it. So the big changes are all the changes are highlighted in yellow. So I'm looking for you guys to either give me suggestions or approve this as is, and then I'll be seeking council approval whenever I get y'all's approval. So the biggest thing in the second paragraph policy statement that I changed, that this benefit does not replace or affect the paid holiday or funeral leave benefits. Funeral leave was originally in this policy. I took it out because I think it's important to differentiate between paid time off, AKA vacation, fun, I'm having a good time, versus I'm grieving over the loss of a loved one. The policy scope, I added for the purposes of this policy, the year begins on January 1. So in the event that an employee is hired on November 27th, then they would have 1 year of service as of January 1 the following year. It's not based off the employee's anniversary date anymore. And then the biggest chunk in procedure, I added that new employees will begin accruing PTO on their first day of employment, but are not eligible to take PTO for anything other than sick leave until they have been employed for at least 6 months. PTO earned within the first 6 months of employment will be forfeited in the event that the employee voluntary or involuntary terminates employment prior to. And then I did add that I think that the original policy had 280 hours of PTO that an employee can accrue in total, and I changed it to 480. And reason being is because as it stands right now, the county does not sponsor a short-term disability policy for employees. There is an option to pay for one, but not everybody has, the extra cash laying around to pay for an STD policy if they need to. So this 480 would at minimum get them to the 12 weeks of FMLA in the event that something happened and they had to take that time off. That's what that is. And then everything else is relatively the same. I did take out the EIB benefit that is listed, but I changed the accrual rate. So you can see on the graph there, the table that EIB is struck through. And then the previous accrual rates are at the bottom of page 1 and the top of page 2. And I changed them to what's in the table. And on the second page, under using PTO, this policy was written that PTO can be used in 15-minute increments. I changed that to 1 hour increments. I think it makes the department head's job a little messy when you have to have somebody who says, well, I'm going to leave at 9:30 a.m. for 30 minutes and take half an hour of PTO. So we all agreed to change it to 1 hour increments. We did add a line that says that the maximum increment to use PTO will not be more than 2 weeks in a 30-day period unless otherwise pre-approved by the department head. So we didn't want an employee to have 12 weeks of PTO and then they say, hey, I'm going to go gallivant across Europe for 2 months. See you later. So we put that in there kind of as a fallback for the department heads. They can approve it if they want to, if they can spare the person, but they don't have to. And then I added that employees may not be able to build a negative balance of PTO. And then under scheduled and unscheduled PTO, approval of requests for non-paid time off will be considered on an individual basis by the department heads and must fall within the constraints of departmental policies. So this policy is under the impression that all time off from work is considered PTO. So there is not intended to be any unpaid time off when it comes to this policy, unless the employee just doesn't have any available. That would be the only caveat. We removed the employees may gift accumulated PTO hours to a fellow employee. I think that gets a little messy when it comes to, well, you gifted it to me, but now I want it back, and I can't have it back. And it would get tough with timekeeping to implement that, so we struck it out altogether. And then PTO payout, I changed from, I think, 100% to 50% because the payout, the accrual rate is so high. And then employees may not take more than 1 week of PTO 3 days prior to a planned retirement. So that encourages the employee to use their paid time off before their retirement and not come to the department head and say, hey, I had 12 weeks, I'm taking 12 weeks, but I'm retiring immediately afterwards. So that's a summary of the changes that were made. Any question?
The only thing I would potentially add, Shannon, would be upon paragraph, page 1, under procedure, last sentence, upon separation of employment, employees are eligible to be paid out of their accrued unused PTO. I think I would say paid out a portion of their accrued unused PTO, because then that references back to 50% payout. That way they don't get the impression in the first page that it's all paid out, and it's not. Other than that, I think that this reflects everything that we've discussed so far. I think probably the thing to do would be to have the commissioners, if you gentlemen are in agreement with this, recommend this thing to the county council for their consideration, because the county council would have to approve it.
Do you think allowing 480 hours of accrued PTO creates a huge liability for us?
No, because you're only going to pay out a portion of it, and you already have, at the present time, like we discussed, if long-term employees have, 30 days, sick days, they can have 30 days. So when you actually add up all of the things that a long-term employee would have, it basically comes up to 480 hours, or very close.
So right now, as it stands, an employee who's worked for the county for 15 plus years earns 20 days of vacation on a lump sum basis on their anniversary. So we're also eligible to earn 80 hours of comp time. So those two put together is 30 days. So in the event that an employee who had 15 plus years and 80 hours of comp time was to leave, we're already on the hook for those 30 days right there, no question. Whereas this, you're only going to be ever be eligible to be paid out at 240 hours maximum. There's no more because it's 480 at 50%.
Yeah.
So at the most, you can only ever be paid for 25 days in this policy, not including comp time. So there
And
is a
we're
little bit
okay
of.
legally with that wording?
Yeah. I mean, these benefits are not FLSA governed. It's.
Okay, that's what I just want to be sure we were.
Now, your comp time is, you have to, that's time earned and you have to pay that out. We're not in any way saying that comp time isn't gonna be paid out, because once that's earned, it's earned. It has to be paid out.
Okay.
But you presently do not pay out sick days. Under this policy, it's very likely that some sick days' time would actually be paid out. And when, presently, they're not.
Right.
So I think it's a positive step for both employees and the employer. I think it's both good for both.
Okay, so basically you're asking for approval of this with that little modification of what you suggested doing.
Yep.
So we could approve it today.
Could approve it and recommend it to the council for their consideration. I think, ultimately, they're gonna have to approve a change
Right.
from your current plan, because it involves, money and involves benefits. They're gonna have to, approve it.
How do
So,
you handle the conversion?
So that's a good point. So on page 3, so I kind of want to treat the policy itself versus the transition as two separate things, because we can approve the policy, but we can still talk about the transition further down the line. So there was 4 scenarios that I had provided based on research that I had done of other companies and how they transitioned. And then this scenario all the way at the bottom, highlighted in yellow, was something that Mark, Tony, Steve, and myself came up with. So we would convert vacation balances as of December 31st, 2021 to PTO. And no lump sums will be awarded in 2022. Sick days are converted at 50% to PTO. And from October 1st to December 31st, employees will be allowed to use up to 10 sick days as interim PTO. And all accruals as of January 1st, 2022 will be considered PTO.
so basically we kind of lean in favor of employees then, right? So, okay.
Yes.
Want to be sure
So
on
when
that.
you're talking about the October 1st to December 31st, that's 2021.
Yes. So if somebody has 8 sick days, technically as it stands right now, they're not supposed to use them for anything other than being sick or doctor's appointments or things like that. So this transition would allow them to use them as vacation days essentially in order to not lose them at that 50% conversion.
I would put that 2021 date. So they don't think, oh, every October 1st to December 31st, I can use
Right.
whatever, but but of course they will no longer accrue sick days.
And if the commissioners, approve recommending this to the county council, then I would probably send it out to the council. I'd get it out to them right away so they can consider it, because they got a meeting next Tuesday. And that way they can digest it and have questions, and, because we're gonna want to get it out to them.
When we send this policy to them, should we send our current holiday schedule and funeral leave policy to accompany this, so that that it's all considered together? Because I know when we've talked about this in the past, that was one of the things that was up for discussion is, do we include funeral leave in PTO or not? So, and I think in considering that particular line, if our current funeral leave policy was presented, it would kind of maybe help put that in perspective.
Okay. I mean, I can, absolutely. I don't think that holidays should be included because
Well,
that's.
I'm not saying include I'm just saying, define them, what they are. No, I'm not saying they should be included in PTO. I'm just saying, okay, here's your leave policy, this is your funeral leave policy, this is your holiday policy, this is your PTO policy.
Right.
Put them together as a package. Just so that, even as council looks at it, they can say, okay, this is where we're at. But no, I am not saying to include them or not include them in the PTO, but just for a matter of information. Boy, this is gonna require some very serious, monitoring of employee hours. I mean, if they're accruing earned hours per hours worked, I mean, we're gonna have to be very meticulous about making sure hours worked are.
Right.
Isn't our accounting package pretty well set up to be able to accommodate this?
Isn't our what?
Our accounting package
So this policy would not be effective until we went live with timekeeping. So that's
Yeah,
something
okay.
that is worth noting.
Yeah.
So this is something that we would not implement until timekeeping was up and running, because they have the ability to say, okay, Shannon worked from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., so she gets 0.0 however many for those 2 hours that she worked. Their system knows how to do this already. They have that ability. So this isn't something that we would do today or next week or when it's approved. We would do it when timekeeping was done.
Are we close on that?
No.
Yeah.
We're getting there.
Okay.
We have a meeting next week to continue to go over some of our pay rules and policies and things like that, so they're still gathering information to be able to build something to come back and present to us. One of our biggest struggles is just not having a good understanding of how all the department heads do, or departments do it now. So we were in that learning phase, so we're just trying to pass that information on to them so they can.
So, do you see that happening before the end of the year?
It has to, at least 1 to 2 departments. Under the ARP, we used some of.
It wasn't the ARP, it was CARES Act.
We used the CARES Act money to pay for the timekeeping system, and the stipulation of that is whatever you buy has to be implemented by the end of the year. So, in my opinion, implemented means completely and totally up and running with minimal to no issues, but we're gonna try to skate by with a couple of departments instead of all of them.
Well, and that's why you need to put this ball back in play now with the county council, because this implements with that timekeeping system. And it all makes sense that it should go together, because it'll work with that system.
Well, and that's why the discussion between council and commissioners stopped when it did, because as we sat down and we had a discussion with Aaron and Kim and myself, and it was like, hey, if we're looking at going to a timekeeping system and going to PTO and going to an HR person, we need to just, at that time, we said we need to put this on hold until we get some of this other stuff in place.
Right.
So that's kind of why that cooperative discussion stopped when it did.
And PTO, from my experience, is quite seamless on a timekeeping system. We typically have little to no issues. It's not something that you have to manage a lot. It's not something that Bree and I and Tony are gonna have our fingers in, always looking at it, checking, and it's very straightforward. You get it, you use it, you get it, you use it, and that's all it is.
Yeah.
Once you've earned so much, you stop getting it. And the biggest thing that I read when I did research about how to transition and different types of policies and things like that was that notice to employees is the most important thing. The more notice you can give them, the better it's typically gonna go. So that's why I'm bringing it up now, when we're not close to timekeeping, is to hopefully be able to notify employees.
Okay, you guys ready to make a motion?
So move. And that's a motion to recommend it to council.
Recommend this to the council.
All right.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded. Go ahead and do it.
That's all I have.
Okay.
You got PTO stuff began to be discussed, when was that, 2018, Mark? The council
That was a
commissioners
long
began to
time
discuss
ago.
that?
Well, and I know council, we had several meetings just about that.
And some joint commissioner and council meeting, work sessions and stuff.
Okay, Mark, anything?
That was one of the things that we wanted to discuss, and obviously get that in front of the county council for their next meeting. The other item that I would have would be, we've had some discussions about getting the plan together for spending on ARP money, and I've sent an email to Rick Hall at Barnes and Thornburg, and I've indicated their firm has assisted a number of other counties in drafting those ordinances and spending plans, and I've asked for him to get us a proposal to do the same, because we've got several projects. The HVAC project that we'd like to do here, hopefully utilizing ARP money. Sheriff Maywar has a project he'd like to utilize ARP funds for some software upgrades, and it looks like that may be possible. And so I think it's worthwhile to get them involved, help us, look at those specific projects. This would be an ordinance that would be you would put in place, and then as you go along, then you would modify down the line as you have additional spending projects come online that you may want to do. One of the things that we may put on in front of the council at their next meeting is Adams County Regional Sewer District, I think, is going to ask the council and as commissioners as well to utilize some of those funds for a cost, basically a local match that can be used to get additional funds for stormwater infrastructure funds for the sewer district. And so if the county were to provide, $500,000 or $1 million matching money, then they can basically turn that into either another $1 million or another $2 million in stormwater infrastructure money that can help the next project that they're doing and help keep rates where they're at without having to raise rates. And so that would reduce the cost of, or reduce the amount of any potential loan they might have to take out. So I think that's one of the things that we'll probably put in front of the council as well, is to see if they're willing to utilize those, some of those funds to leverage money for infrastructure projects. That is one of the specific uses, permitted uses for ARP funds is infrastructure projects for water, sewer, or broadband. And so that can have a significant effect, I think, for a lot of different residents in the county, and certainly can promote growth and development. So I think it's a good use. So I don't know, if, gentlemen, unless you have some opposition to that, are you I guess on board if the sewer district goes to the county council and requests funding for ARP money for infrastructure match, is that something that this board is in support of?
I think so. I think I would be in that. I can see some economic benefit.
I'm certainly not opposed to that. I'm still just looking for an organized way to handle these things. As far as the decision on how this money is spent, does that lie with us as commissioners? Does that lie with council? Does it lie with joint?
I think it's joint. I think the commissioners can initiate plans to spend, but I think, to actually approve the spending, then it's kind of like an appropriation for seeded monies. You guys come up with a seeded spending plan, but the council then actually appropriates the funds. I think that's the way it's going to work.
Now you're going to go to the lawyer for guidance on how to spend this money. We're not going to hire him, are we?
It would be on a retainer basis on a month. Yeah. So just whatever time they get involved. No, it would be, and I've asked them to give us a proposal as to what it would cost. And so I've asked them to email me a proposal to represent the county just on preparing the spending plan and what that would cost and how they would charge us, and we can get an estimate on that. And those funds are eligible for reimbursement. So if we ended up spending, $10,000 in legal fees to help us develop the plan, those funds are recoverable from the ARP funds. So it wouldn't have to come out of county general or county, appropriated line item for legal. That's my understanding anyway.
Yeah, that is an allowable use, is hiring a consulting firm to help guide you through it, that you can pay that firm out of that money, out of those revenues.
Okay.
Well, the thing that I come back to too is that comment you made last time, Tony, about how these monies are spent through accountability and through a possible audit or whatever. You're going to be the one that has to answer for the way these funds were spent, what they were spent on.
Yeah. Yeah, we've already had the first disbursement, right, Tony? And that's.
Yeah, we've gotten the one disbursement. We'll get the other one next year.
So the way it works is you've got the funds, and you would proceed to spend those funds like you would spend any other funds. and the
Just
commissioners.
comes out of that one fund.
Yeah, so the commissioners, and I think a real good way to look at it, it's similar to CEDAT funds, which is economic development funds. The commissioners develop the spending plan, but then the county council approves the appropriation of the funds, of the money out of the pot to spend on those particular projects. And in this case, you could go forward and you could say to the sheriff, go ahead, let's do that project, and council could appropriate the money and you could spend the money. The trick is when it comes to the audit, a year or 2 years later, they say, okay, what did you spend the funds on? What was the reason? Where's your underlying ordinance approving that expenditure, and how did it fit within the COVID guidelines? And if you can't demonstrate that it all fell in there and you can check it off and it was an appropriate expenditure, then they're going to say, give us the money back.
Yep.
Okay, and so what we're trying to do, actually spending the money is not going to be difficult. The risk comes in, did you spend it appropriately and under the guidelines for something that was, approved or appropriate? And so you're trying to minimize that audit risk and the risk on the back end by doing your plan now and making sure you have the right help to get those funds allocated and approved under the guidelines. And the thing is, those guidelines are likely going to change. We've seen already, they seem to be moving, some of those posts, because I think ultimately they want to see the counties use the money for infrastructure. I think you're going to see more of that, where they're going to want to see infrastructure projects. And I don't think they really want the money back, but at the same time, you're playing with fire. You don't want to just spend the money and have what they've said in all their communications is documentation, paper trail, and make sure you have receipts and you account for how you use the funds. And so that's the process that we have to go through.
And that's where I would see, as we develop a system to appropriate, I would tend to throw a little bit of that research and responsibility. If there's outside agencies, if there's nonprofits, if there's whatever, to justify their request, to say, this is our request, this is how it falls within the parameters of the rules, and this is the amount of money. Kind of an organized way to present these expenditure or appropriations. And so if there is nonprofits that want to do it or whatever, businesses that want a part of that, throw a little bit of that back on them to justify how it fits.
Well,
But,
this is just unprecedented. It's just an unprecedented time. We have never ran into anything like this, where the federal government is throwing money off and it's trickling down to counties and cities, and they're saying, spend this money. It's unprecedented. So we're just trying to figure it out. But I think as commissioners, as the executive of the county and the council as well, you want to look at spending plans and projects that benefit the broadest cross-section of residents that you can, and if it can promote, development and growth and help your local economy, pick off those things that, are going to provide the broadest benefit for everybody, if that's possible.
And I'm certainly not opposed to supporting the county.
Or doing projects that you had on the books that you were going to have to spend county general money for, that can now be tailored towards, COVID-related reasons that you can spend
We can't use
ARP money.
to replace budget items, though.
Well, but that's where you got to be creative in how you come up with your reasonings for spending, because that's what the Barnes and Thornburg has been doing, helping counties to adopt those plans under these guidelines so that they meet those requirements.
Yeah.
So for example, like the HVAC project, you're going to spend $250,000, and that was going to come out of your county general fund balance.
Yeah.
If there are reasons, you can say, well, no, it's due to air quality, air standards, and that meets, requirements, which other counties have done, then you're able to use ARP funds to do that. You've saved yourself $250,000 out of county general.
Yeah.
Which has a positive impact on, your budget, your tax base, and everything else. So,
Well, and this is a shelter, you know, this is considered an emergency shelter building.
yep,
I think the government realized that this is trickier than what they thought, and that is why they extended the time allowed to get a plan together to the end of 2024 to get the plan together, and then you have till the end of 26 to spend that money. And I think they did that for a reason, because they started getting all these questions back, and they're like, uh-oh, this is a little trickier than what we thought. We better extend that time out to make sure that these folks are all doing things correctly. And Stan's correct. The auditor's office has to submit the first report at the end of August, and then I forget I think October might be the next time, the end of October. But anytime you have spending on that, you have to report all that spending. And trust me, with State Board here right now and what they've been asking for is actually more than what I think we have been used to in the past. Like, used to be they would ask for a claim and we would show them and then the invoice would be attached. They are now wanting things even before that. We have to go farther back in our paper trail. And I think Ed has experienced some of that also in the treasurer's office, where they're asking for more things. The federal audit is also being done now, and they're looking at every grant and all. I mean,
So the better paper trail we got.
the better paper trail, and I think Mark would substantiate that as well, the better paper trail that you have. Well, for example, Mark, myself, our office, Adam has been looking. They saw the payment to the hospital for the EMS to cover the county, which we make regularly, monthly, I believe. They wanted a trail on that. There was none. We had to go all the way back. I had to talk to Andrew Barrett, who was executive director when the county started contracting with the hospital to provide that coverage. That was back in '77. I had to go all the way back there. The only thing we found was that they did a contract for $60,000, which covered half the year. It's a little bit more than that now, but so we didn't have it, no matter how far back we look, because it just hasn't been there. But Adam is now working with Mark on getting a contract, an interlocal agreement between the hospital and the commissioners of the county. Going forward, we will have that regularly, where you guys will approve that. It'll come before you to be put into the minutes. So things like that. We've been doing a lot of research. Well, like I said, all the way back to '77 on that one. So that's kind of what we're dealing with, and I have a feeling that's what the federal government's going to want when we start dipping into this money. So I don't know if Ed has any differing thoughts from Treasurer's office standpoint, but
Well, just before, some of the research I've been involved with is those goalposts that the federal government wants you to establish. They are getting more and more lenient every time we get a new report that comes in. They want this money spent. They don't want to have any of it returned back to them, from what I understand. So have good projects, have them ready to go. I like that you are being very slow and steady on your approach and not spending stuff willy-nilly right off the bat. If we have good projects, we have them ready to go. I think by the time you see that we're ready to spend maybe the first half, that the goalposts for the second half of money will even be looser, and we can spend them on more things than we can today. So look for that going forward.
on that video that I sent to you all, the link to it, they discuss how to calculate the county revenue and determine, I think they say 4.1%. You have to show that COVID caused us to have less revenue. So it's not necessarily an easy calculation, but I would recommend all council members, county attorneys, and commissioners to watch that and any updated ones, because there's a wealth of information and it's changing as we go.
Okay, Mark, anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Anything from the public? Rick?
Tony, just a friendly reminder, not this Friday, I believe it's the 20th on the shredding.
I think it's 23rd, isn't it?
Let me look here. But after the commissioners meeting on next Tuesday, possibly start putting some boxes in here.
Yep.
23rd,
Have it, meeting the 20th.
Is it 20th?
20th?
Why was I thinking 23rd? I don't know.
On Friday.
Okay, if there's nothing else, gentlemen, you guys got anything else?
Just a real quick question. I just got an email from Mike Ainsworth and he's
Yeah, I
talking
got
about
it too. We don't got it.
maybe working in cooperation a little bit. I didn't know how you see that happening. Or what.
Well, we just need to read it. I mean, I just got it. I haven't had a chance to digest it yet. But,
Just looks like a little bit more of a cooperative effort between he and the commissioners
yeah,
on moving forward, so.
yeah. Yeah, we'll read it. Maybe we'll have to discuss it next week. See what happens between now and then. Okay, if there's nothing else, gentlemen, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion's made, seconded. We are adjourned.